Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books. What a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together. What a yummy snack. PBJamz. Yummy books and music. PBJamz. Reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz. What a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz.
All right, good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever it is that you are joining us for this episode of PBJamz. Super excited to welcome a debut author. This is Julia Hammond, and this is her very first book, Soulful Struttin', and it is such a fun book with so many layers. I'm excited to talk with you, Julia. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to talk about Soulful Stratton, especially in February, because this is the month that my agent sold Soulful Stratton. So
Oh, nice.
very
So it's kind
excited.
of an anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking as I've been reading back over it this week and working on some of the elements for PB James, like it really is a perfect time to focus on this book because it's also Black History Month. And so a lot of the artists that you give nods to are African American artists. So it's a really fun time to focus on it for that. And there's a lot of jazz in there. So it's a great month, I think, musically and with Black History Month. So lots of reasons to celebrate this book this month.
Yes. And with New Orleans and Mardi Gras, there's just so many connections.
So many. Yes. So such a fun book. So I want to ask you first off, so where did this idea come from? Where did you get the inspiration? And especially regarding the musical components, there's a lot of music in this book. So where did all that come from?
Okay, so I love this question. So I grew up in a family of nine, which means that, yeah, there was a lot of activity. There's so much
Yeah.
going on in the house at all times, but that also meant that there was always a ton of mess. And my dad was the person kind of in charge of corralling us into cleaning. So he would always do this thing where he'd get the vacuum or he'd get the broom and he would start singing and dancing and trying to like get us off of the couch or wherever we were to start cleaning. And we'd all be like, no, dad, no, like rolling our eyes. And then eventually, even if we hid, like eventually we would come out and clean and dance and sing with him. And it was just this really fond memory that I had of my childhood because he would just always do this when there were all the messes. Like I remember my sister and brother like got crackers all over the floor and I thought my dad was going to be so mad, but instead it was like this fun cleanup thing. And my parents were always very cool about all of the messes. And so it just was this happy, like childhood thing to think back on. And I'm now a parent, and so I'm trying to like encapsulate the spirit of like being more chill about messes and making cleaning fun. And so it was inspired by my dad, but then it was also inspired by my heritage because my dad is from New Orleans and my family's from Louisiana. And so I wanted to like tie this all in, but it naturally was kind of tying in together because the songs that he picked were always like jazz songs or funk songs. And um my mom, like she wasn't clean like telling us to clean because my mom was constantly cooking. Like literally, I feel like she was just constantly cooking for like seven children. Like it was insane
Yeah,
how much food was being consumed in one household.
sure.
So my mom, she loved to cook recipes that she learned from my dad's mom, my grandma Centilla. So that is whose recipes in the back of the book. And it's also who I'm named after. My middle name was Julia Centilla. So I just like wanted to put together all these favorite things about my childhood in a book. And then it naturally just kind of went all together, I guess. And it kind of just flowed naturally, I think, because I was just pulling from my own memories.
Yeah, I love that. What a lovely legacy for your family, and it's kind of all encapsulated here in this book. So that's really, really sweet. Love that. Yeah, those dad memories can really stick with you and make a big impact. I have some of those as well. So we're really blessed to have those. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about those musical elements. Let's dig into it a little bit. So, one thing that I noticed this week as I was working on it is that you really call out all the brass instruments, and that's a sweet spot for me because I'm a brass player. So, was there something specific about that? Is it the New Orleans, the Dixieland jazz kind of influence? Where'd that come from?
So the first time my dad took us to New Orleans, he had us dance in the street, like as you know, like if you've ever been to New Orleans, like you know that you could go on like you could go, I'm gonna blank on names, but it's like Frenchman Street, I think, and then like Canal Street, and you can just find musicians playing outside. And then of course
All
they have
over.
the second
Mhm.
line parades and people are just dancing in the street. And my dad and then my mom and my sister and my brother and me, because we only took like a small group the very first time, like we just had so much fun dancing all together. And so I just had a very fond memory of specifically the brass instruments.
Uh-huh.
And so I knew that I wanted that to be part of this book. Um, and then the book really started like the first time I was like, oh, I want to write down something about this was in February. Again, like February is just so special for this book.
Yeah.
And I was at a local Black culture festival that is down the street from my house. And I went past this jazz band and they were playing the song Soulful Strut. And that song, like I love. Even when I was a kid, I just loved that song. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, wow, that would be a great book title.
Yeah.
Um, I had no idea there were copyright issues, but in
Mhm.
my head, I was like, that would be so great. So that was like the first seed that I wrote down like a note in my phone about. And then I went home that day. There was a local bookshop called Grassroots, and
Mhm.
they were at the Black History Festival. And so I got a Louis Armstrong book from them. And so I went home and I put my son down for a nap. And then I was reading through this book. And I just like fell in love with some of the musicality in the language of the autobiography of Louis Armstrong. And I just kept going back to these words, like describing the dancing and describing the like the jazz beats. And so I started writing them down, and they all were having this ing ending, or like depending on, like if it was like a caption from a news article or something, it would be an in, caption or a word. And so I just started grouping them together, and it was like strutting, flapping, knocking, dancing. And I was like, okay, I want to somehow make a refrain from this. And after like sitting down with those words, then I came up with a refrain and was like, okay, something could be here. And then it just so happened that my dad came over to hang out and play with my toddler. And he did his normal thing, which was like, oh, there's a mess. I'm going to get your baby and me to clean it up. And so he was in like the hallway with the broom and my son, and they were like playing and cleaning. And I was just thinking about how, wow, like nothing has changed. Like people
Yeah.
truly don't change. Like this is so crazy that my dad did this with me and now he's doing this with my kid. And then all of a sudden it was like boom, 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 boom. I think I have a framework for this story. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it just was like one of those really beautiful moments where like all of your inspiration is like tying together and you're just constantly getting inspired to do this story. And so I shared a super, super rough draft with my critique partner who had been published a few times, and they were like, this is it. This is the story that you're going to query with. Like, this is like super good. And so I just felt very confident and strong. Like then with the revision process and teasing this all out.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And the music in here, the music in the book that you mentioned, and you include some little phrases, like I love it when that happens. And you even have the playlist, which I always adore when there's a playlist to go along with the book. So, so much musical fun. You've got the brass, you've got the second line parade, you've got the New Orleans, you've got all these jazz standards throughout, and not just jazz standards, but like you said, some funk and some other R&B stuff mixed in there. So there's a nice wide variety of music in there. So lots of things that music teachers could bounce off, or classroom teachers. So when you think about teachers using this book with their students, or even parents using it with their kids, or what is one thing that you really hope that they catch, or they do, or they pay attention to, or share with the young people?
So I think if for teachers, I think it would be really cool if teachers used it for like, teaching writing or teaching even like rhythm in writing. So my background is in dance and I danced ballet through college. And so I really wanted to have rhythm be in the story and in the structure, and then even like a choreography in terms of like the father and the daughter dancing through different scenes and areas of the house and then making their way at the end to the kitchen. So I think the story kind of shows that you can take those elements of yourself and put them into a story, but then also you can have this rhythm with the refrain that's going throughout a story as like a through line, even though it's not a rhyming text.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that would be really cool to show. And then like something that I didn't do in the back matter, but when I was researching for this book, like I was reading the autobiography of Louis Armstrong, and then I also was listening to all this music and asking my dad like, okay, like let's go through what were the songs that you love to sing with us, and then like opening up the lyrics to those songs while working on a draft was so helpful. And there are so many like hidden lines from these artists that are in the text.
Hmm.
And that was really special to me because it just felt so musical, like you might never know it, but there's like a hidden line from this artist here and then here, and like having kind of feeling like their voice is coming into the
Yeah.
text.
Yeah.
Um, and I am not trained, like I'm not a trained musician. And so, um, and I think that people who are like magical, like the things that you know how to do with a musical instrument just blow my mind. And so I wanted to make sure that how I was talking about the instruments was, um, I don't know, like as honest as I could get to it, knowing that I don't have that background and training, and as authentic as I could possibly get to it. So that's where a lot of the research was so important to me. Like there's even a part where the dad plays a song using the table, and he's like tapping on the table, and I was like trying to get those five taps to sound like the actual drum beats. So even though I like, and I don't know if any of that came across, but I was just trying to like be as authentic as possible in terms of what I can give, what based on my background.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. For me, as I read, Julie and I had talked a little bit via email about how, gumbo is a signature thing in New Orleans for sure. And my husband has some Cajun roots. And so, yeah, gumbo is one of his specialties. And so we talked about, trading out gumbo recipes and whatever. So, one thing I hope that's not musical at all, but I do hope that people that are maybe unfamiliar with gumbo, I hope that they'll give that recipe a try too. Like I think that's just super fun. And also the playlist. Like I said, I love it when authors include a lot of music, and I love all those little Easter eggs, and I pulled out a bunch as I was going through in my head, but I'm interested now to go back and see what else I might can find. But that playlist I think is just a really powerful tool for teachers and families to just celebrate together and just enjoy some, lots of variety of good music. So those are a couple things that I hope people will pay attention to. And also I was thinking, as I was reading the book, and you mentioned this a minute ago, like the ing words, but throughout, you use the contracted version of that where you put the apostrophe at the end and drop the G. And that's something I think, kids might that's something teachers might want to point out because it's something I think when kids are reading independently, they struggle with that. I remember when I was young and I was trying to read Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, and there's a lot of those dropped endings and a lot of that dialect and I think kids struggle with that dialect and what that means and what it should sound like. So I love that you were very consistent with that throughout the book, and I think that's a really nice talking point for teachers grammatically to say, yeah, it is an ing verb, but they just drop the G. And when we talk, we often talk this way. Like we don't say we're strutting down the street, or we're walking down, we do tend to drop those endings. So it's just a way of writing it the way people tend to talk.
Yes, and I agree. I agree with you. When I taught Bud Not Buddy, that book, I
Yeah.
remember that the students were really struggling with
Yeah.
some of the contracted words. So yeah, I absolutely hope that teachers do like point that out and address that. And I think what felt right about doing those endings was like, the story is mirroring jazz music. And to me, jazz music is like taking this form of music that has existed and then twisting it and turning it, and there's no ending and there's no beginning, and there is a beginning, but there's no ending, and there doesn't have to be. And like, I think that jazz just has, I don't know, this really creativeness in it. And I just kind of wanted to like mirror that in like, okay, let's take the word and let's break it instead. Where you think it's going to end is not where it's going to end. Um, but also like another thing that I hope that teachers or families do with the text is actually like clean and work together as a family or as a classroom to like accomplish something just like Clara and her father do, because um I think there is so much great research about how like chores or building something together as a family can actually help a child to build like executive function skills or organization skills or like delayed gratification skills. And it seems silly to think that like cleaning with your family relates to that, but it actually does. Like, and there's all this research about it. I actually wrote a blog post that I would love to attach to this
Yeah,
article
please share
about
it with me. Yeah.
like how all of this stuff is hidden in this simple act. And so I hope that people use the book to also like create this tradition, or if they're already doing it with their children, just amplify it and know that it is doing so much more than just, cleaning a space.
Right. But I mean, we talk about layers in Kid Lit, but I think that's one of those things that does have so many layers because, I mean, yeah, obviously you're accomplishing a goal. The house is clean and it feels nice to have a clean home. But also, you're doing all the things that you just mentioned, executive functioning and delayed gratification. You're also building relationship, just like with you and your dad. Like that's one of the hallmarks of the relationship that you have. And so, parents that are maybe struggling to build those good, strong relationships with their kids, this is another way you can do that. And then it's modeling what they're going to want and look for as they become adults in relationships, that they're going to be building homes with people, and then that becomes a bar. I mean, you're setting a bar to say, you want to find somebody who's gonna, laugh with you and sing with you and dance with you and cling with you and all these things. And so I mean, just really what you're accomplishing with that is far from simple and definitely multi-layered.
Yeah. And my family, they always had this quote, like I feel like my mom had a lot of quotes, but one of them is that make your own fun. And so she would always like drop us off at school or drop us off at a dance and be like, remember to make your own fun. And I feel like that started when we were really little, even
Yeah.
in this activity. Like, yes, it's cleaning. Yes, that can be boring, but actually we're going to make it fun, and you're going to figure out how to make your own fun so that you're not depending on something else, or you can just depend on yourself.
Right, right. You are the master of your destiny. You can choose how you perceive this and how you, yeah, I love that. Yeah, and quotes, that's awesome. That's an awesome quote that your mom had, and great that, yeah, it's just it's this is what these activities can do, for families. Like you're building family bonding, you're building these skills that they need anyway, and you're setting the bar for what they're going to look for in relationships in times to come. So a lot of great things. And I'm glad you mentioned that because when I've been working on the Pinterest board because I always pull together a lot of ideas on Pinterest. My husband calls me the Pinterest queen. I don't have a crayon, but I keep waiting. But but I always include a Pinterest board. And so one of the things that I was pulling a lot was like little chore things, chore charts and just all kinds of different things that could help families with, figuring out the chore thing with their kids and helping them to do that. And so I love that. Um,
Yeah, love that you're the Pinterest queen. That is
oh
such
yeah,
a great title.
love
I follow
Pinterest.
you on Pinterest now.
Oh yeah, absolutely, girl. I got some good stuff. You have, I mean, yeah, gumbo recipes
Yeah,
included.
yes, yes.
Not that
Okay,
I need
done.
them because my husband does the gumbo, but he doesn't let me touch the gumbo most of the time.
Okay, that's a done deal. I love Pinterest. If I could have like a degree in Pinterest, I would have it.
I agree. It's such a great resource and it's such a cool way to like gather things together and visually. Like when I first found Pinterest, I'm like, I love this because I can like look at it. Like you find so many great things online, but then going back to them is like such a chore. And if you have a list of links, like there's nothing to remind you of what you saw that was interesting about that. And so I adore Pinterest. I love it. I love, love.
And you know what I love to do too is I love to make a board for a story that I'm working on, and especially like during the character building process. So like I just did a board for like this sassy dog story that I'm working on, and like Pinterest has the sassiest photos of dogs like I've ever seen. I would never have found those, without it. And it helps to like when I'm trying to figure out, okay, who is this dog and what are like how does he paint his nails and like just little
Yeah. So character development, Pinterest style. You heard it right here first on PBJamz.
it
Yeah,
works. I've done it for every book that
I
I
love that. Yeah,
yeah, I did
yeah.
it for this one too.
So fun. So fun. Yeah. So before we move to the last question, is there anything else that you want to make sure that we touch on that we have not talked about yet?
Um, I think I would just say the only other thing that we didn't touch on that I would want to talk about is just that I think that it's really important to put um I don't know, to just put as many details about your own life in your stories that you're trying to have a lot of heart in. Like they say that specificity breeds authenticity, or maybe it's the reverse, but um I just think that like people have noted things in the story that came from like almost like oh like exact words that my dad had said or like exact situations that we got into. I think those were really helpful in the text and then made it feel as authentic. And I guess since it was my first like successful story, I was really surprised when people pointed out those moments, and that helped me to realize as a writer that like things that you might not think are important, like details that you might think other people might find stupid or like, or just like, why is this even here in this story? Like they can actually be the thing that's making it so strong and so emotional for the reader.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good point. Yeah, very good. Love that. This has been like a little mini master class for our writer friends. So yeah, we'll have to make sure they check it out. So before we close out, I want to ask you, I always try to give my guests an opportunity to talk about any events that are coming up that you might want to shout out, or if you have another book that's coming down the pipeline that we need to look out for. So what's coming next for you? What do you want us to know?
Okay, so I'm super excited, but technically I have three secrets and I can't tell any of them yet. So I can just
Wow.
hint at them, but I have like a book coming out that I'm so excited about, and it's a humor book, and it's inspired by my five brothers, who are like, yeah, and then and inspired by my son. So I'm so excited for that one. And then I have a holiday book coming out that's inspired by my family as well. And then mentorship that I also still can't talk about, but it's also coming soon. So I guess I would just say that to check on my website, juliahammondcreates.com, and hopefully I'll get to talk about one of those things like soon, because I'm very happy about them. And I don't know. I guess I would just say that the mentorship one is coming up first, I think, to be announced. And that means so much to me because in the Kidlit community, I would not be here if I hadn't had a mentor that was helping me and helping me to figure out all of this like very mysterious world of publishing and what to do with your querying and what not to do with your stories and what articles to spend your time reading. And so I'm just so excited to give back in those same ways.
Awesome. Yeah. That's one. Yeah, the kidlit community is really fantastic. And yeah, for those of you who are viewing and you're not in the publishing realm, like you're in the teaching realm or the music realm, like yeah, publishing is mysterious and challenging and frustrating. And so it is really helpful to have those people along the way who lift us up and help us figure things out because there's so many unwritten rules and like yeah, just stuff. So much stuff. And you don't know
Yeah.
till you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, and there's amazing books, but then some of them have info that is not exactly accurate or not accurate, but it's just that like I think in none of the writing books that I had read had they talked about like pitch parties on Twitter, and that ended up helping me to get an agent, but I wouldn't have known about those if it hadn't been for my mentor. So I think that like I just think that things you just need someone who can help you with staying up to date on all the changes that happen too.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So much. So many stages and so many, yeah, things that you just don't know till you know. So really helpful. Well, congratulations for all the secrets that we can't talk about. That's the other thing. Like there's so much of publishing that's waiting. And sometimes you're waiting for answers and sometimes you're waiting for permission to share things that you can't share. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and that's one of the hard things because you know, and I think over the course of time, like the other thing is it's super slow. And so I know I have a friend who she's the author of Moon Tree, Carolyn Fraser, and she said the hard thing, one of the hard things is that you get super excited but you can't share, and then by the time you can share, you've kind of lost your momentum, and you know, but the nice thing about that is I think there's some nice little bars along the way that kind of build your excitement back up, like you know, for me, I was telling Julia before we actually got official, I was saying, you know, I can actually say my debut comes out next year. And it's been like a year and a half, it's been 2 years, you know, but now I can actually say we're in 2025, so I can say next year. And so those little benchmarks and landmarks, like they make such a difference in helping us keep our momentum and our mojo because the length of time from idea to draft to contract to book is such a long, daunting process.
Yeah, it's a marathon.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. So it's good to have those little benchmarks and good to have those people to cheer us on when we are feeling kind of like this is never going to happen. This is not even real.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, it does feel like that sometimes, doesn't
Yes,
it? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation, and I really hope that our writing friends will tune in because you've given so many lovely tips that I think will be helpful for them.
Thank you. Well, I've been so happy to be here. And actually, you just reminded me of one other thing that I wanted to say based on what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like this journey is so hard and it's so long. And I think something that's really helpful is to like have a list, like maybe it's in your notes page or in your like sketchbook or just somewhere that you are going to see it a lot, but of the tiny accomplishments that you are making, whether that's like you watched a webinar, or you had a critique with someone who's in the business, or you made a connection in the business, even if that is like not an agent or editor. Like those things are so special, and they actually add up, and then you will be so surprised at the end of 1 year how much you've accomplished, even if you don't have the book deal, or even if you don't have the book out yet. So I feel like it's really important to write those things down. Otherwise, it can feel like, okay, wait, I just went, 4 months without a book deal. Like what
Right.
did I do? Even though you actually did a lot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's a good point because it's on this side of it as well. Even after I think a lot of people think, oh, well, you've got a book deal now and everything's just going to run smoothly and quickly, and I mean that's not always the case. I mean, I know you had a little wait after that first. I mean, I sold this one book and I have not sold anything else yet. And so there are those times even on this side after you've sold a book, and you are a published author, but there's still these dry spells or these times that feel like they are very long and drawn out. So in all the stages, I think there's hard things, but there's also those good things, and those little things, like you said, are super important to create that list and to remind yourself of those.
Yeah.
Good tip. Really good. Well, before we close out, I want to say that Julia is offering a winner's choice for our giveaway for this episode. So, Julia, you want to tell them what their choices are?
Yes. So, and ask me anything, a picture book critique or a free book.
Yay! I always love it when they do winner's choice because then you get exactly what you want if you happen to be the winner. So make sure you leave a comment down below if you're watching this from the blog. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you grab the link in the description and head over to the blog and leave the comment there because that's the only place I'm checking to put names on the wheel of names. And you have 2 weeks from the date this episode airs. So it's airing Thursday. Let me check my calendar. I want to make sure I tell you correctly. It is airing Thursday the 6th. So you need to get your comment in by Wednesday, February 19th. And so if you leave a comment by then I will put your name on the wheel of names and we will choose somebody. And then you get to choose your favorite giveaway from Julia's choices, which are generous and lovely and wonderful. And, if it were me, I would choose to Ask Me Anything because she is so much fun to talk to, as you can tell. And she has so many great ideas. But hey, the book is awesome too. And I know her critiques would be great as well. So you would be a winner no matter what you chose. Also, just let me remind you that our authors are so spectacular and they come and they talk with us just out of the goodness of their heart to share their good news and the good things happening. So if you could just reach out and do a review for Julia's book, Soulful Struttin'. Also, if you can do a library request at your school library or your public library, that's really helpful. Reviews on Goodreads, Barnes and Noble, and Amazon. And just word of mouth. I always want to say that I think that's really the very best way to share something that you love. The people who are going to, gravitate to this book. So if you heard something in this episode that resonated and made you think of somebody, reach out to them and say, hey, I think you ought to check this book out. A kid that would enjoy it, a family, just anybody, a teacher. So give it a shout out wherever you can. Social media is a great place to shout it out if you enjoy it as well. Anything you would add, Julia, to that?
No, no, no. You are a professional. I have nothing to add. And this is great.
Okay, well, I hope that you will check out our book and leave those reviews and say all the good things about it because I know you're going to love it. And be sure to check out the playlist and all the teaching resources that I am going to link up below. I'll also link up Julia's website and her socials. So check all that out. Have a lot of fun exploring the book, and we will see you next time on PB Jams. Bye.
Bye.
PBJamz, yummy books and music. PBJamz, reading, writing, teaching.